Hi students, this is Professor Joe Angley, and today we're continuing our lectures about water with a focus on water conservation and management. After reviewing these lecture materials, you should understand what a watershed is and why it's important, identify ways that you can conserve water, and be able to identify the largest uses of domestic water. Let's get going. Watershed management and conservation are often more economical and environmentally sound ways to prevent flood damage and store water for future use than building huge dams and reservoirs. A watershed or catchment is all of the land drained by a stream or a river. It has long been recognized that retaining vegetation and ground cover in a watershed helps hold back rainwater and lessens downstream floods. In 1998, Chinese officials acknowledged that unregulated timber cutting upstream on the Yangtze River contributed to massive floods that killed 30,000 people. Similarly, after disastrous floods in the upper Mississippi Valley in 1993, it was suggested that rather than allowing residential, commercial, or industrial development on floodplains or those areas along the sides of a river that tend to flood, these areas should be reserved for water storage, aquifer recharge, wildlife habitat, and agriculture. Unfortunately, this advice has largely been ignored. We could probably save as much as half of the water we now use for domestic purposes without great sacrifice or serious changes in our lifestyle. Simple steps such as taking shorter showers, fixing leaks, and washing cars, dishes, and clothes as efficiently as possible can go a long way towards forestalling the water shortages that many authorities predict. Isn't it better to adapt to more conservative uses now when we have a choice than to be forced to do it by scarcity in the future? Water conserving appliances such as low volume shower heads and efficient dishwashers and dual flush toilets can reduce water consumption greatly. If you live in an arid part of the country, you might consider whether you really need a lush green lawn that requires constant watering, feeding, and care. Planting native vegetation can be both ecologically sound and aesthetically pleasing. As part of its water conservation efforts, Las Vegas, Nevada is paying residents to replace turf with natural vegetation and has asked golf courses to rip up fairways. Toilets are our greatest domestic water use. Usually, each flush uses several gallons of water to dispose of a few ounces of waste. On average, each person in the United States uses about 50,000 liters, or 13,000 gallons of drinking quality water annually to flush toilets. Low flush toilets and dual flush toilets can drastically reduce this water use. Gray water, that is, recycled water from other uses, could also be used for flushing, but installing separate plumbing systems is expensive. What can you do? Saving water and preventing pollution are pretty easy. Each of us can conserve much of the water we use and avoid water pollution in many ways. For instance, don't let the faucet run while brushing your teeth or washing dishes. Draw a basin of water for washing and another for rinsing dishes, and don't run the dishwasher when it's half full. Fix leaking faucets, tubs, and toilets. A leaking toilet can waste 50 gallons of water per day. To check your toilet, add a few drops of dark food coloring in the tank and wait 15 minutes. If the tank is leaking, the water in the bowl will change color. Dispose of used motor oil, household hazardous waste, batteries, and so on responsibly. In Orange County, Florida, we have a waste pickup, or places you can go and drop off your waste materials. Don't dump anything down the storm sewer that you wouldn't want to drink. Avoid using toxic or hazardous chemicals for simple cleaning or plumbing jobs. A plunger or plumber snake will often unclog a drain just as well as caustic acids or lye. Hot water and soap can accomplish most cleaning tasks. If you have a lawn, use water, fertilizer, and pesticides sparingly. Plant native, low-maintenance plants that have low water needs. And if possible, use recycled or gray water for watering lawns, houseplants, and for car washing. Growing recognition that water is a precious and finite resource has changed policies and encouraged conservation across the United States. Despite a growing population, the United States is now saving some 144 million liters or 38 million gallons per day, a tenth the volume of Lake Erie compared with per capita consumption rates of 30 years ago. With nearly 90 million more people in the U.S. now than in 1980, we get by with 10% less water. New requirements for water-efficient fixtures in many cities help conserve water on the home front. Pricing does have an effect on our water usage. Ironically, water from Lake Mead, which is facing a huge supply crisis, currently costs Las Vegas residents 33 cents per cubic meter. By comparison, the same amount of water in Atlanta, Georgia, costs $3 and $7 in Copenhagen, where water is abundant. What do you think these prices do to motivate conservation?